Bring us in.
Okay, so welcome again, everybody, to what is this, episode 3 of Nerd Side of the Ring.
I think it's
Myself,
four.
actually, this is 4.
Yeah.
Wow, we've made it 4 episodes and we haven't gotten canceled yet. I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
The overlords at Free Play have decided we get another week of survival, like the Hunger Games.
I mean, we've
No.
made it with live matching game way longer than I thought we were.
I love the live matching game. If you guys want to tune in tonight, that's at 7 o'clock, right, Chris?
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. So, for anyone who's just tuning in or who has not heard this show before, a lot of us at Free Play are wrestling fans, and we decided with the powers that be at Free Play to give you weekly wrestling content, because Wednesday nights, the last 2 weeks, we have had Wrestling Wednesdays at Free Play Richardson. So a lot of that is the culmination of what we have seen this week in professional wrestling. We try to keep it as concise as possible, but sometimes tangents happen. And luckily in Mike B's case, he's not here, so we don't have to hear his back in my day, the Von Erichs had a 20-minute headlock, and they did one head scissor takeover, and that was the extent of the wrestling match. So
The greatest match
last
of all time.
night, oh yes, the greatest match of all time with 20 rest holds, and the referee got knocked out midway through.
I know. It was a shock. Yeah, the whole thing ended in a
back then.
DQ as someone got thrown over the top rope, which apparently was subject to a disqualification victory.
Yes, I remember that. I am old enough and yet young enough to remember throwing people over the top rope was a disqualification because that was only eligible during battle royals. So I thought that was weird.
Very.
WCW did that for a while as well, and then one day they just stopped. Nobody kind of kept tabs on it after a while, so they let it go.
Yeah.
But
When I
this
got back
Nerd
into
Side of the
wrestling, I
Ring-
was really confused. I was like, wait, but he went over the top rope, isn't it? I'm confused. But no longer. Now the rules are whatever we say they are.
Right. And the rules of this show are basically we all have our point of view, we discuss, we converse, we may disagree, but we always keep it on this side of the ring. We never take it outside the ring. So myself, KP, myself, Jesse, Fred Boat, Michael B's not here.
Fred
Carlos
Boat.
Where is my
Carlos will inevitably roll up in here probably in about 20 minutes. And we have our Paul Heyman to all of us Brock Lesnar's, Chris Delp in the control room. He is our advocate. He is our Yoda, as it were. And I thank him for his time and being a part of this.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
He's in Gorilla.
He's in the gorilla position. He's the producer, so he does all the work. He's Vince McMahon.
Pretty much.
No.
He just doesn't cover up murders.
No, can he just be Cody?
Or Cosmo.
No.
I am like the Vince McMahon that I remember because I remember like the 80s when he was a announcer, he was
Yeah.
a commentator, right?
Mhm.
And he was just a play-by-play guy. Like he was also the owner, but like he didn't have that as part of his character. So yeah, I'm stuck on camera, kind of like Vince was then, and yet I have to also hit the buttons to produce. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
So I remember last night, Chris, we were watching NXT and flipping between that and AEW, and you had some concerns and questions about wrestling in general. So would you like to ask the group what those questions were?
Oh, I mean, my takeaway from watching NXT and AEW, mainly NXT last night, was just like the presentation was bad. It was really bad, particularly like commercial breaks during live matches. I actually leaned over to you after like the second interruption and said, "Is this live?" Because I was unclear. Like, if it's tape recorded and they're cutting away in the middle of a match for a long commercial break just to come back and pick up right where we left off, okay. But if this is a live wrestling match and they cut away, like, what's the point? Like, they're just telling us that like all of this is predetermined to be meaningless. Like, they're taking bumps and whatever for not even a crowd. There's not even anyone there, right? So they're just. I don't understand. I don't understand at all what NXT was doing last night. Can you explain it to me? Because I am baffled.
So both shows were pre-recorded, but edited as if they were part of a live crowd because there was a live crowd in the audience. I didn't like the cutaways. WWE's main problem lately has been their camera work, their live cuts and their jump cuts almost. It takes a lot to keep up with.
And that was bad as
So
well.
that was bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another takeaway. The commercial, particularly where the commercials were, was jarring. And as someone who's trying to give wrestling a chance again, which is where I'm coming from, because I'm part of this broadcast. If I'm gonna be stuck in this chair and like stuck on the screen, like I would prefer it be you. I prefer it be like the people who are more hardcore, but it just the COVID like exceptions right now. Like when this is done, I would love for Nerd Side of the Ring to be a thing that we do. And you know what? You guys can come over to the Free Play Away Game Studios, which is very close to Free Play Richardson. We could just film it, and I got the green screen, and let's make it a round table, and I can be over there making the producing happen.
Right.
That sounds so much better. But since I'm here, I'm gonna try and be a part of it. And as a new viewer, the type of presentation I saw from NXT yesterday made me lose interest. I mean, I was watching what was my favorite match of the night, which was the women's match. I believe it was not the tag team match. It was Nia and somebody else.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So that match, I was watching it. We're about 4 minutes into the match. It goes to commercial, and I'm like, really? And then I turned over to you and I said, really? And then I went and played Street Fighter. And eventually they came back, and I kind of glanced over my shoulder, and I can't even tell you who won. So that's not going to help you gain new viewership. I would think that's part of the point of having non-pay-per-views on TV, right? Is to
Yes.
build your audience, and that's not going to help.
No, watching that match last night, the one you're talking about was Indy Hartwell versus Mia Yim, and it was probably the most oddly spaced match from last night, just because of the quick camera cutaway to a commercial. And then you made a reference that I agreed with about the rest hold. It was very it was very 1980s, where Indy had an advantage, and immediately they went to the chin lock. Whereas in the first match we saw of the night, a person was put into a chin lock or straight jacket neck hold, and the man passes out. But here it's, I can keep this headlock on her for 10 minutes, and we're going to go to commercial and come back, and we still have the headlock on. So,
It's so weird.
yeah.
So
That's a big problem with wrestling.
So Chris,
That's the problem.
whenever you say like the presentation, are you mostly talking about like the pacing?
No.
Because I didn't watch,
Well,
but I assume.
So
Yeah.
the pay, because I watched back in the Sportatorium days, like I do remember the 20-minute arm bars. So it's not totally off-putting for me to see. It was weird. I mean, it was a weird throwback to have those long sleeper holds to go for forever. It doesn't feel like a fight. No, more like the camera angles, the way they cut, the smash cuts into everything, like, and the fact that even those aren't artfully done at times, particularly the match between, you said he was the new guy and he was fighting a 12-year veteran from the UK.
Yes, Karrion Kross versus Danny Burch. Yes.
Yes. They had all the different camera switches whenever impacts were supposed to happen, but like I didn't see. It was Damien, you said? Sorry, what were the Cross? Oh, sorry, Cross was the new.
Karrion Kross, is the newest signee that they're building up, and he was in the ring with Danny Burch, who is usually part of a tag team.
Right.
But he is kind of the gatekeeper, one of the gatekeepers of NXT, because he's been around for so long. Want to see if you can go with the vets, as it were. So that was kind of why that match happened.
I didn't see Burch make contact with Cross one time, and not even get close. So the camera angles were both bad in relation to the wrestlers. It seemed like amateur hour out there.
Because I know with like the WWE thing, and this is because I kind of stopped watching around 2014. That's kind of where I stopped. But I remember even then, one of my biggest like gripes was whenever they do an impact, like let's say a suplex is coming down, right? and as the suplex is coming down, as the impact hits the mat, they'll cut.
Correct.
So by the time, even though it's maybe, I don't know, what would you say, like half a second, you know, between the impact and the cut, and when you put it all in, by the time your eyes like go back to like the new camera angle, that the impact is already done. That slam is already done. You heard it, but you didn't see it. And it's like, I know they do that a lot. I know it's mostly like, what's the dude's name? The Beaver guy. What's the dude's name? The producer
guy.
The producer? Me? What?
No, not you. Dude,
Oh,
I'm brain
Kevin
farting on his
Dunn.
name. Kevin Dunn. There you go.
Thank you.
Kevin Dunn. I know that's a big Kevin Dunn thing because Kevin Dunn, he's the producer for Raw and SmackDown. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But I know he's like camera cuts, zoom ins. He's like, that's his big thing, and people have hated that for years. And my friends who are like really big WWE fans who still watch it like day in day out. They like it, but they'll still they say it's like the worst it's ever been in terms of camera cuts. I'm not sure if that's
It's the worst I've ever seen.
infected NXT or not, but my friend has sent me like clips. He's like, check out this raw clip from the official WWE channel, so it's not like someone's like messing with it. And yeah, it's just like a little quick match or whatever, and the camera cuts are insane. They just keep going back and forth, and at its worst, it's jarring, but at its least, it's just like you feel like you miss some of like the big like impact stuff. And yeah,
Like
I can see why to someone who doesn't like watch wrestling, you're like, what the hell? Like, stop, let me just watch it.
For me, I look. I understand that it's predetermined outcomes. I understand that sometimes the impacts, like, look, we're not. I don't want someone to super kick somebody through the face and shatter their orbital bone. Like, I don't need to see that. That's not part of what's happening here. So if the camera like artfully cuts to create an illusion of more that's happening there than it is happening, because like I said, I didn't see, what was it, Birch and Cross? I didn't see Birch actually touch Cross, and I saw him whiff many times. So if they were to artfully do it in a way in which the camera angle like makes it look like more is happening there than is happening, well then, okay, I can take that. And then when something actually happens, like, you know, I don't know, the Stone Cold Stunner is applied, someone gets hit with a DDT, then just like let that play out, because then it's on the performers, right?
Yes.
We get camera swaps at everything, because I assume they assume everything on the wrestling end is going to be terrible. That's the only reason I can think of them doing that. So it just looked like an amateur hour all the way around, with the exception of, I don't know, Cross's manager, who was playing it up to the nth degree. Like, she was killing it out there. She had it turned up to 14, and everybody else looked like they were trying to learn how to wrestle. It was weird.
Yeah. So I made the comment to you and Sarah last night while they were in the ring that Scarlett knows exactly where the hard cam is, because that's where she's extending her body, so that they get the view of her chest. And it's like, really, guys, you're making it this obvious that instead of focusing on the action, we're noticing Scarlett Boudreaux in the back stretching her chest out to be seen on national television. Come on, man.
I can already tell you, Damien, like, this kind of happened with Lana. I saw when Lana debuted with Rusev.
Yes.
When I saw that, the first thing I told my friend was, they're gonna focus on Lana and Rusev's gonna be forgotten. I know Killer Cross, Karrion Kross. I think he's really awesome. He's got the look. I do think he's a good wrestler. That he definitely has time to grow, and I think he's young, right? Like he's not,
He's early 30s.
Yeah, he's in a good spot. I think like pretty much you can consider it like around his prime. I think he's a good guy, but knowing WWE, I just get the feeling that it's going to be the same thing. They're going to focus on Scarlett. They're going to build her up, and then Karrion is going to be like, just one of those guys. Not that I want it to happen. I just foresee it, man. Like they're going to have Scarlett be the star. She's going to break out in like the women's division, and Karrion is going to be lost in the mud. I just think that's going to happen.
Well, I honestly believe if they play up his unhinged character, because their gimmick is weird, Chris. Their gimmick is almost vampiric, emo, satanic cult thing. I don't know. Like their tagline is "Fall and Pray." and they're supposed to strike fear and be psychotic, as you saw with the really great acting by Keith Lee of the fireball hitting his face from the contract last night. So that just shows you right there that
I
the
was
production
entertained.
sometimes not good.
I was entertained. I like a good train wreck too.
The sports entertained.
Yes, I was sports entertained.
I think Karrion's going to do great in NXT, and then the eventual call up is going to happen, and I think that's where he's going to get lost. And again, every time I say this about NXT people, I don't want it to happen. I just feel like it's going to. I look at Cross and I'm like, I think they're going to be high on him for the first like month or two on the main roster, and something, booking WWE booking is going to happen.
When you have a bunch of 70-year-old dudes in the back who don't know how to book for the current audience, of course, we're going to go for the guys and gals who scream larger than life personalities, potential crossover appeal. And those are the ones that are going to get pushed to the forefront. The wrestler types, the real, I say real as in athletic wrestler types, are going to get pushed to the back until they develop some sort of personality to be on television. So NXT used to be that, Chris. It used to be this developmental system, this breeding ground for new recruits to get interested in the WWE style, to get acclimated to it. And then when they're ready for the call-up, they're TV ready. Now, because of COVID, they don't have tours anymore. They don't do the house show circuit. So they have to literally learn on air, on the job, as if they're part of the main roster now that this show is on USA Network, where before it was being advertised and broadcast on the WWE Network. So unless you had the network, you weren't watching NXT.
Yeah, and
you
it was
can
branded,
hide these things.
It was branded as developmental as well. Like they told you, it's like, hey, these are up and coming guys, and now they're like, NXT is practically treated as a third brand. I don't think they consider it. Yeah, I don't think they consider it developmental at all. Even though technically it is, because when a guy is brand new signed to WWE, nine times out of 10 they go to NXT first. So kind of is, kind of isn't.
I'm fine with experimental and rough around the edges. I'm fine with the occasional train wreck. See the live matching game, like honestly, like the Keith Lee acting was ridiculous, and the whole like exploding contract thing was weird, and I giggled, and I found myself entertained. If that's what I'm gonna get week in and week out, I'm not. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
I will say this: WWE does the best. No one does train wrecks better than WWE, and that's a compliment because some of them are legendary.
Yes.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah, you can't stop watching them on YouTube. You go back to the YouTube. Like, did you remember this when when Mae Young, I think, had a baby arm, and
Dude,
she gave birth to a hand.
Gave birth to a hand and got thrown through a table. Yeah.
And Chris, did you know that hand was came back?
I did not.
As a grown hand.
I did not. But it doesn't surprise me. Nothing would surprise me.
Was it Raw 300 or 1000? One of them?
It was Raw 1000.
Yeah, the hand came back as a like a big grown hand. It was the stupidest
thing.
It's an adult. It was. It's like at that point they're just having fun with it, but
right. So you can have your fun. I'm gonna keep my tongue in cheek for the most part. I can even deal with rough around the edges as far as these they'll get better with the making contact with whatever they're doing. I don't know what I was watching with the Cross and Birch matchup as far as the in-ring stuff goes. So I can deal with new performers. I kind of would like to see the camera work a little more stable and a lot more stable. Like I don't have much tolerance for cameramen learning on the fly. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Is that what it is that what it is, or are they ready to go? Is that the best that WWE has to offer?
I think that's just their style. Like I think that's just how they do it. And honestly, from a personal standpoint, I can't stand it. Like I literally can't watch it.
It is not TV ready. People think it's TV ready. It's not TV ready.
It's Kevin Dunn ready.
Yes. But Kevin Dunn, who has been in the WWE longer than I've been alive, it seems,
yeah,
has this one way of just action, America, action, everything. No, dude, it doesn't have to be that insane. You don't have to make everything look like a Michael Bay explosion just happened, where you cut everywhere to catch all the action. You're giving people almost epileptic seizures just by watching wrestling, and that drives me insane. So, Chris, I'm with you in that situation. I'm over it as a viewer. I'm over it.
I'm producing this show and I have my hands folded on the air.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like, I've had discussions with producers of Tuesday Night Fights, of our different broadcasts from Free Play, from the arcade, and like, you're not the star. If you're the producer, if you're the cameraman, you're not the star. Like you got to know when to step back and let the people who are the stars, which i.e. the people playing, competing, doing whatever it is, let them have their stage. You don't want to distract from their stage, because that's the whole point of this. And I really, really, really feel like their presentation distracted from the stage. Even amongst, people that you say are developmental, they don't get the chance, because heck, it could be Chow Bud versus me out there, and we could swing wildly, and I can remain socially distant from her, and it's still like it was madness out there.
So overall, everybody else in the chat, did y'all watch AEW?
I did.
I did.
What did I miss?
You. Oh, I mean, honestly, like there's not to run down the whole thing, but I think the main event was I liked the main event. I think it was clearly the time to have Orange Cassidy shine, because he's gotten a lot of crap recently, like from Jericho, and having him lose the first match. I think after everything they've been building up with him, you needed to have that victory for Cassidy, no matter how you did it. But I do think that they're leading towards a rubber match. I think they're doing this in a classic way of 1-1, and then the big rubber match, that's the one that counts. I think that's what they're going for. But I did like it. Jericho did not seem at his best last night. I don't know like what was going on with him, but he, it's even like Jericho not at his best, I think is still pretty good. And thankfully Cassidy actually knows how to work, so he was able to kind of like salvage it. I think under different circumstances, if that was like a different guy out there, I think that might have come off like more flat. But I honestly prefer their Fyter Fest match more than this one. But it was topped off perfectly because of the Cassidy win. I was expecting it. I wasn't sure if they were going to really do it, but they did. But I do see them. I think they might be doing their rubber match at All Out. I think that's what they're building towards.
So the big thing, Chris, and you may not have known this, is that Jericho was under a lot of fire for having a concert over the weekend with his band Fozzy, and it was not very socially distanced. So Jericho, basically not even 48 hours from working a non-socially distanced concert, wrestled in the main event of AEW last night. So maybe that's part of the reason he was feeling run down, because he was doing his concerts and whatnot and living the rock star lifestyle. But it's going to be interesting going forward to see, is there any repercussions for this? Like, dude, they didn't have people socially distanced. Not everyone was wearing masks at this concert. So and yet you worked.
Yeah, that was really like not, again, like I don't think right now is the time for literally, I don't care what band you are. Now it's not the time to do concerts, period. That I think everyone can agree on that.
I agree. Not a good time.
But suppose, like, when they talked about the Jericho stuff, supposedly like the band of Fozzy, they were taken care of, and I'm sure they were taken care of. But the point really is that those concerts, like there was a shit ton of people there, and they seem to be among those people who just don't care. And it's like, like it just looks really, really bad.
Yeah, it's the inevitability of it too. It's such a rough situation, because we have artists in our community group, like we have bands, Sub-Sahara, they were at Sunday. That's their where they make their money. It's really, really frustrating and a tragic situation, but yeah, you're right. Like, I don't see how you can have a concert right now without inviting that. Like, very much so.
It's just postpone this kind of shit. That's why he kind of got some flack for that. But I mean, it's just a really stupid thing, and it's not the first thing Jericho has done or said something really stupid. I think that's kind of like he's one of those guys who has a lot of good things about him, and then if you look into it, he's got a lot of stupid stuff about him too. But at this point, I don't think he cares.
Oh, but did you watch last night?
Kim.
Oh yes.
Go,
Oh, you called me
like,
Chow Bud.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm using your nickname in the chat. My bad.
Yes, I did. I did enjoy the fight, but my favorite one is Kenny Omega, the tag team match
Yes.
with Kenny Omega and Hangman, and of course Jurassic Park. And I'm a fan of Fun Size, so I was happy to see
Yeah,
him.
So I don't think Damien. I don't think you've seen Kim in person. She's very short.
Shut up.
So
Oh, is she taller than Marco Stunt?
she's tall. I thought you were gonna say she's taller than Mike B. I would say yes. But taller than
No,
Marco
Mike
Stunt?
is. No,
I'm pretty
About
sure
the
she's
same.
taller than Marco.
Am I?
I'm pretty sure, dude. That man is like tiny. He's like a
Like
13-year-old
5'3",
kid.
5'2".
Yeah.
He's taller than me by like an inch.
Oh, Chris, we watched this last night when we switched over.
Yes.
You saw him get used as a projectile by the dinosaur man.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It was fun. Although that was one that had a commercial break during the middle of the match where it was picture in picture, which is another like really disorienting thing that I saw last night. So I had trouble like focusing, and I don't know how to fix these problems because I got to be distracted as part of my job anyway during Wrestling Wednesday. But yes, I saw it. It was Spike Dudley Reborn.
Good point.
But that's pretty much what Marco has kind of been, is that Spike Dudley spot where, and I give a lot of credit to him. I've known about him. I didn't know much of him, but when he was signed to AEW, of course, this was around the time where a lot of people were AEW hadn't even done their first show, but they were like already criticizing AEW because they signed a bunch of like what people consider smaller guys, and Marco being like the smallest guy in the industry. People kind of crapped on it. I was just like, well, I don't even know. I haven't even seen the guy, so I don't even know what he's gonna do. When I first saw him, I was not sold on him. I didn't like him. I just thought like, this guy just shouldn't be in the ring. At a certain point, it's just like, what the hell? But once I saw him like get in there and take some of these bumps and pretty much do the Spike Dudley thing, right? I have to give him some respect because he goes in there and he takes some crazy bumps, and I do think he adds to the show. However, I think he's in a perfect spot of not being highlighted, so to speak. He's mostly just kind of like that admittedly third wheel to Jurassic Express, and I think he works good there. I think eventually he'll do something else, but for now, I think he's a good package with Jurassic Express. I do enjoy.
He's a good friend.
You know what I like?
is.
What I like about Marco Stunt, like on TV, is that even his character has a bit of an ego. Like he doesn't like being undermined, and even against Kenny Omega, he'll try to like fight back or he'll poke at him, kind of trying to. He almost like wants to fight him, and I'm like, dude, you don't want that. And of course, Kenny had to just give him a good dragon suplex on the outside, just because he's being a dick.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. He laughed at him, and I'm like, you asked for it.
That's one of the things I like Kenny for too. Even though Kenny's a baby face, he's not afraid to give people like Marco Stunt a dragon suplex on the outside if he's being a little dick about it.
But he didn't have to slap him.
He did. But yeah, I think that tag team match was really good. It's not one of their best tag team matches they've done, but I think for a tag team championship match, I think that was really good. I do think Jurassic Express, I think they have a ways to go in terms of kind of reach, especially in that company for AEW's tag team division. They have a really big ladder of really good talent that they need to climb. So I think they're only going to get better as they go on. But I like that match as well.
Last night was Tag Team Appreciation Night, so that's
Yeah.
part of the reason we were inundated with nothing but almost tag team wrestling last night, except for the Cody match with Scorpio Sky. Personally, I like tag teams. didn't like trudging out the 95-year-old Rock and Roll Express, but that's neither here nor there.
Did you,
That was a little
They
light.
still wrestle, by the way.
Did they really?
Yes, they
I
still
know
wrestle.
that was reason to grab the remote.
did anybody see the segment?
Yeah.
We saw some of it.
Some of it. Enough to hit the button.
Well,
Got the Sandman came out with his cane and whoosh.
Well, the reason I really love. To me, that was my favorite segment of the night. One of the reasons I do love Rock and Roll Express is because they come out there. Yeah, they look old as dirt. But one of the biggest difference between Rock and Roll Express and other old as dirt wrestlers being trotted out is that at least Ricky Morton, for sure, at least he can take a bump. And he took a bump last night. Like he pretty much took a pile driver last night.
Yeah, they Spike Powell drove him last night, right?
Spike pile driver, and it wasn't done in just like like we're bad people. No, it was like a final full page heel turn for FTR. Spike pile driving the people that the Young Bucks revere, like the Young Bucks literally going out there saying, "Thank you for being a tag team because you inspired us to be wrestlers and to chase our dreams." And FTR just Spike pile drivers the old man, said "fuck you" and "fuck the guy that made your dreams." I really, really liked it a lot, and that's clearly the trigger that's gonna push the FTR versus Young Bucks like match for All Out. That's clearly going to be like their main hype train going forward. But yeah, I mean, I am not really a big fan when they trot like old people, especially when they go out there and they don't do anything. But that's why I at least appreciate when I know Arn can bump. He doesn't like I don't think they should. I'm not saying they should bump, but if you go out there, I think it should have some type of like meaning, like push a storyline or putting another guy over, not just coming out there saying, "Hey, I'm old. I used to wrestle." What's up,
Jesse? What you're telling me is you like the thought of senior citizens getting Spike pile drive into the match.
If they can take it and it advances the wrestling story, then yes.
So if you're a senior
uncalled
citizen,
for.
everybody stay away from Jesse. He might put you through a table.
Yeah, so can you watch out, Mike B.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, talking about Mike B. I'm pretty sure if he was here, we'll be talking about MJF.
Ugh,
And
I can't. I don't know what y'all see in him. I really don't.
no,
I
no,
love him.
I don't like. Well, look, he is a good wrestler. I just don't like his persona. He's such a jerk, and he's so good at it.
That's the point. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
MJF is one of the best like complete packages that I've seen in wrestling in a good while, and he has nothing but room to grow, in my opinion.
Well, my favorite part was John Moxley coming out there and kicking his butt.
Oh, yeah,
That was my favorite part.
Yeah, I was surprised him taking a paradigm shift there, but Damien, I don't know if you saw before MJF did his little speech thing, he came out. He had a bit of like a Goldberg entrance where he came out from the back in his little room. And I know a while ago, I don't remember when, but a while ago, Samoa Joe had a bit of a Goldberg entrance.
Yes, and
in
he was a
NXT.
security guard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you saw whenever Samoa Joe shoved MJF out the way, like he was just an extra at that time, but he just shoved the crap out of him. And so last night when MJF was coming out, and there was a guy who was getting a little too close to MJF, and MJF shoves the crap out of him and says, "Get the hell out of my shot." He says, "Get out of my shot." And I saw that, and I was like, "Dude, it wasn't like focused on, but you could tell it was like a little nod to when he got shoved by Samoa Joe."
It was a tongue in cheek for Samoa Joe. I did enjoy that. I saw it. I did see it, and I thought that was cool, paying homage to something in the past. AEW does a really good job of doing when they pay homage to past or little wink winks at the camera. I don't like when, to quote you, Jesse, when you bring in a legend, do something, and they're just there occupying space. Chris, WWE is notorious for this. They'll bring, I'm going to just pull up random names. They'll bring in Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Nikolai Volkov, Don Morocco, anyone from 1979 to just be in a shot.
Just
That's
walk
it.
out there, yeah.
Bob, what was his name? Bob Byrne? I don't know.
Bob
Backlund.
What's that? Patterson? Is that what it?
Patterson is the first Intercontinental Champion. Bob Backlund's the crazy presidential candidate.
Bob Backlund, yes. I remember seeing him show up like time and time again on WWE broadcasts, and I was just like, ugh.
That's why I really love, rest in peace to Roddy Piper. I always love when Roddy came out because even like off TV, right? Like in other interviews, when people would ask Roddy, like, do you, because he would sporadically make appearances in WWE, even, even like, even like during his last like few years. And people would ask him, like, when do you decide to come back? Do you just do it? And he's just like, I want to go back only when there's something that I can contribute, like a Piper's Pit, an interview, like people in a feud, or kind of add to something. You could tell he didn't want to be out there just to kind of be out there. And I think that's the best uses for people who clearly, shouldn't be wrestling. Go out there and kind of like push a storyline, push a new person.
One thing that this new experience for me has shown me is that there is the talent out there right now to fill all of the time on camera, even if it is like up and comers and people who are getting it straight. Like, there's no need for all this filler content with 40-minute segments of I don't know, like just like Hall of Fame-esque stuff. You're making me sad, Jesse, that I didn't stick around to see the 65-year-old man.
Dude, it was good. That guy took it
table.
like a champ.
But so I missed the good part, and I got the boring part. That they were, I guess, making an homage to previous boring segments. It's so weird. I don't know. I have not finalized my opinion on NXT or AEW. I have given it way too little of a shot. I'm going to give it all a shot. And that includes like me having to do Wrestling Wednesday and doing little events on the side, and still having to go over to pinball when someone is feeling lonely over there. So like,
yeah,
I'm going to give it a nice long opportunity to like get a good breadth of experience from both outfits. But right now, like, I really have enjoyed the physicality I've seen from AEW, and I need to give NXT more time, I guess. I definitely saw like more from the women, as you said I would, but
only had one women's match.
Yeah, I wanted to ask
There's
about
a double tag team match as well.
Kim?
Usually there's more women wrestling on AEW, but yesterday was just one. And that was super short too. Why is that?
Oh, sorry. You guys are talking AEW, not NXT?
Oh,
because I didn't see any on AEW as far as the women's wrestling.
So for just to put a bow on the NXT women's thing, there were two women's matches last night on NXT. We talked about it, Mia Yim versus Indy Hartwell. I'm not a guy that's going to give out match ratings, but it was a bit of a slog. I know Indy is still getting used to working the American style as opposed to being in her native Australia. He is one of those people that can try to work with anybody. Again, NXT is developmental. So they're going to mess up. They're going to be awkward, because I remember the armbar, Chris. You looked at me and you said,
that was weird.
It doesn't look painful.
Everything else about that match I was okay with. And like, again, I do come from an era of infinitely long arm bars and stuff, so that's not the worst thing in the world to me. But yes, that finisher was, quite frankly, the worst I've ever seen, because I believe she had her arm, she's holding, you guys didn't see it, correct? So she had her arm like this, and she was bending it the right way. Like if you bend my arm this way, you know what that is? Comfortable. It was weird.
We need a William Regal explanation as to why.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing, because Chris noticed it, and then I realized it too. It was almost as if they realized it in ring and said, "Oh crap, we got to go the other way."
Yeah,
and then they straightened it out, almost like a yoga pose to
She was
apply
bending it
the
like
pain.
this, and then it was like, well, let me raise it above your head now, and it was so weird. Yeah, that one needs to be completely scrapped, and let's work on, I don't know, a scoop slam or something. Call out the finisher. The end.
Normally Mia's finish is a knee to the face or a foot to the face. It's called eat defeat. So she'll grab a person's arm, she'll go on her back, put her foot up, and drag a person's face right into her foot, almost like a reverse curb stomp. That's cool. But this weird tap out submission thing they tried last night, I hope that's not her finish going forward, because it just didn't make sense, especially in the pacing of the match. weren't working the arm at all during the match, and all of a sudden, haha, armbar. Wait, like what? How does that work?
A
So
reverse armbar.
you like that.
Folding
Reverse
it in the
fake
correct
armbar.
direction.
Correct joint manipulation. But there was also a second women's match, and you briefly touched on it, Chris. There was a tag match between Aiden Carter, Casey Canizaro, formerly of American Ninja Warrior, versus the Robert Stone brand of Mercedes Martinez and Aaliyah, who has not graduated in NXT in the 20 years she's been there. It was fun for what it was. Both Caden and Casey are ninjas, or being billed as ninjas per se, so they're going to rely on their quickness and their speed and their tech team and their roommates in real life, which is kind of cool. So they get to build on their chemistry in that realm. But the Robert Stone brand with the really cheesy red suit, looking like a used car salesman. Mercedes Martinez is a longtime vet, 20 years in the business. She's another one of those. If you can't hang with her, you can't hang in the ring. So I think for me, watching it as a women's wrestling person, the bad part was Aaliyah, and it's sad because she's been there the longest. She still feels as if she's counting the moves in her head. That's a little depressing.
I was gonna say like I know Aaliyah's how long she's been there for like she was signed a long time ago, right? Like she was
Back when it was FC, the
Yeah, I
end
was
of
gonna say,
FCW.
FCW. So even before NXT was NXT, like actual NXT. But Damien, I wanted to ask you because I keep hearing about this and I have no idea what it entails. What is up with like what's going on with ninjas? Who are the ninjas?
Okay, so there are ninjas, Chris and everybody on Monday Night Raw, led by Akira Tozawa, who is Japan, one of the best wrestlers in the planet. But they've made him this comedy act where he leads this gaggle of ninjas in his pursuit of the 24/7 championship from the 37-time champion R-Truth. So, Chris, you don't know this, but the 24/7 championship is the joke championship where you can get pinned in the parking lot, at
It's
a
like
wedding.
the old hardcore championship.
Yeah, we
Right.
actually covered it on Mike B News a few weeks ago, so I've seen a few of that. I think was it Tom Brady? No, it was Rob Gronkowski. that won it.
Rob Gronkowski. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, and we were trying to imagine scenarios in which Tom Brady would become the champion. But yeah, I'm
No,
vaguely
not
familiar.
likely.
Vaguely familiar.
So there are ninjas being led by Tozawa during, I believe it was during one of the cinematic matches a couple of months ago. I thought, cool, we're going to get these biker Yakuza characters that are going to just kick butt and take names. And unfortunately, it wasn't Shenmue. It wasn't Yakuza. It was comedic Benny Hill style ninjas. And
They look like the Foot Clan from Ninja Turtles.
It's an accurate depiction.
That's
Yes,
what
they
they
look
remind
like
me
the Foot
of.
Clan.
They're kind of goon kind of things. I mean, I think it's kind of cool, but I just don't think like I've only seen a little bit of it. I don't really know. I didn't know Tozawa was leading him or anything. It just seems very odd, you know. Like right now, time is like kind of limited. You have to like focus on what did Vince McMahon say the other day? Like he wants to focus on making new stars. It's like, yeah, well, you know, like I think that should be everyone's like prerogative every time you do a show. I think is to push new stars, and I don't think the ninja stuff is cutting it. But I think that's more of a Raw thing, right?
That's a Raw thing, along with the Fight Club. Chris, I don't know if you know about Raw's Fight Club.
Underground. We talked about
so
it
that's
last
still
time.
a thing. So they
Raw Underground, they had a second week. We had Shayna Baszler show up, former MMA cage fighter, which was great. So she beat up a rando woman in the crowd or whatever.
Okay.
But
In the crowd?
one of the people
Well,
watching the pit
it
fight.
worked. It's a
Yeah, that happens in Pit Fighter.
Oh, okay.
That's
So,
what Raw
yeah.
Underground reminds me of. It reminds me of Pit Fighter.
The burst. At the
So,
end, they put somebody up on a forklift to show they won.
So, Damien, I wanted to ask you this last week, but Beltran was taking up too much time. So one of my issues, because my friend asked me, what do I think about the Raw Underground thing? My first, like, legitimate, aside from like the funny stuff, my first legitimate criticism would be like, typically when WWE has done stuff like this, they don't have an end game in mind. Like they're just kind of doing something for the week or for the month, and I just don't see like what's that guy's name? Dabba-Kato. That I know he's wrestled before for
Batunde,
WWE.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Like they portray some of these guys as supposed shoot fighters, right? Like they go in there MMA, beat the crap out of people, and like is the end game to put them in a wrestling match and where the bell rings and yeah, like you said, you'll see Dabba-Kato do like a rest hold or something like
I'm thinking inevitably this is an attempt to make another division for WWE to have a title in, to give a more sports dynamic feel to it. Oh, we have wrestling. Oh, we have fake shoot fighting. Because they've had Brock Lesnar in the past, Ken Shamrock, currently Shayna Baszler, formerly Ronda Rousey. The brawl for all. I guarantee you, Vince McMahon was watching UFC and said, "There's a way we can make this a shoot fight, brother."
Or do you remember when? Because I know the big. I don't think it's a rumor. I just think people just say whenever Vince McMahon sees something and he kind of likes it, he's like, "We can do that better."
Runs with it.
He will literally say, "We can do it better." Like, do you remember when TNA a long time ago? TNA started doing a cold open for all their shows, and they had like a Dragon Ball Z recap, and they had an announcer pretty much doing a Dragon Ball Z recap, and apparently Vince McMahon saw that and he was like, "We can do that better." And then Monday Night Raw had a Dragon Ball Z recap for like a month, and it was very weird. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. To me, my joke is Vince McMahon got around to watching Fight Club, and he thought it was cool. So now he's doing Fight Club like in Raw, but it's weird. It's definitely like one of those what I always tell people like Vince McMahon's Monday Night Raw is Vince McMahon's like Saturday Night Live. It's got a little bit of everything.
Damien,
That's what I think it is.
Is that fair?
Is it fair that they're trying to do all this stuff at one time to get it all in?
Jesse's characterization, because like that is my like I think when I think of a comparable person to Vince McMahon, I actually think of Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and the way he like the way like his ego, like Jerry's ego is always overshadowing the Cowboys, and he goes with his whim and he has a plan until he
he has another plan.
Yeah, until he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and decides he wants to spend a bunch of money on another person. Yeah, like I always think of them together, to be honest with you.
I'd say that's a fair comparison point.
Yeah.
It's someone who still wants to be involved with the action, but physically can't, as in Jerry Jones wishes he could play football for the Cowboys right now, even though he owns the team.
Or coach.
Just wants to get, or coach. Mm-hmm. So I honestly think Vince produced the way Vince wants it if he was watching. Mm-hmm. Oh, I want to see men beating the crap out of each other. That'll bring in ratings. I want to own a football league, the XFL, and fail twice.
Yeah, just a lack of focus, it appears. Like an aging man with too much money getting bored. Like that's who am I describing?
The perfect way to describe
one
that.
Am I describing?
What's the next WWE pay-per-view? SummerSlam, right?
SummerSlam is in a couple of weeks.
How much you want to bet, Damien? I'm calling it right now. I haven't even watched it, but I can call it simply because of what little I know. McIntyre is dropping the title to Orton.
I hope not.
At SummerSlam. I'm saying I believe it. Just by the clues, the context clues that I've seen, it's like, yeah, he's dropping the title to Orton.
I hope not.
How much longer does Vince have in this? I mean, does he die with as in this position?
Yes.
Does he?
Yes. He will, and I say that with respect to Vince, he will pass away as the owner and CEO.
So we may not have seen the bottom.
No.
Oh no.
No. It's going to get bad. It's going to get bad, especially since he can't make money off the house show circuit, which usually allows wrestlers to do whatever they want because it's not being filmed. It's like the traveling circus. Mm-hmm. Now Vince just has his hands in everything now, so shiny object syndrome. Still got to make that money. So let's have fake Def Jam fighting on Raw every week for 20 minutes, and maybe we'll build up 1 or 2 stars because we need to make new stars for television. So if I'm watching former MMA Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter in the fight pit I'm going to want to tune in. Maybe they'll choke somebody out. Maybe they'll bring them up to the main roster and actually be a wrestler, to Jesse's point. But it's getting bad in WWE, Chris, to be quite honest. And the only thing I watch is NXT.
Sorry, what was that?
The only thing I watch is NXT.
Okay, yeah. No, it sounds like it. And like when I hear about the people who star in WWE, I hear names that are very familiar to me because I hear John Cena and Randy Orton, and Triple H is still doing his thing with a clipboard, and yeah,
because I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who like only watch NXT, like WWE fans who only watch NXT, or people who only watch NXT/AEW. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is I know it was like either 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at this point. I'm sure Damien knows about it, that Raw did its record lowest viewership ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that week, more people watched NXT and AEW combined than Raw.
Combined, yes.
And I think that's I don't know, to some people that might, just kind of sound like whatever, but in my opinion, like, yeah, it's 2 shows combined, but it's still like AEW and NXT combined had more viewers than Monday Night Raw. That, to me, that is insane. That's crazy.
It goes to show because people want something different, I think.
It's just, and it also goes to show, like, it's not technically a WWE thing. It's more of a like Raw, but in my opinion, it's more of a Vince McMahon's hands on things type of thing, because I don't think people just aren't buying what Vince creates. And we all know, I think we know that Vince is not as hands on NXT as he is on like Raw and SmackDown.
Me personally, I'm very bored with that stuff. I already left. I already made my decision. I left, and I hadn't watched wrestling for some time. And I have I have a couple of periods in my life where I watched wrestling, and I'm far removed from it. And it wasn't, Damien, meeting you and the people and Carlos and Mike and Jesse, and how passionate you guys are. That is part of what brings me to the table to want to like do this again. So there's the social community part of it. But the other part of it is I went to CEO at Daytona Beach and New Japan Pro Wrestling and Kenny Omega at the time, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a live show during the fighting game convention. It was all like new stuff. It was not Ric Flair getting wheeled out to the side of the ring so that a 55-year-old wrestler could DDT another 55-year-old wrestler. Like that stuff is so far behind me. Like I have no interest in that. But between hearing that there are viable new promotions or viable new acts happening, and how much you guys care, like that's what's bringing me to the table. So nothing about this makes me want to watch WWE official or whatever, the main show, basically ever. You're going to have to hard sell me on that one.
We won't try to sell it.
It's so weird.
That's why we watch Wednesday, because it's an alternative.
Can wrestling, I guess, what the heck is in the future for wrestling with it all upside down like this?
Honestly, like, to not sound too much of a mark, it's just like I think WWE made their main shows that it just needs a complete overhaul, dude. Because NXT, even though I watch the main shows, I watch the takeovers and stuff, like their big pay-per-views. I like NXT. I think their shows are good. They definitely have talent in spades. They do occasionally have that WWE stench to it, but it's not enough to like deter you from watching it, to be like, yeah, this is just crap. But the main shows, Raw and SmackDown, that's just like, I don't know what the hell is going on. It's like it's like somebody having such a tight grip that they have no control on it. That's like the best way I can describe it. But it's one of the reasons why when AEW premiered, or when it was announced and it was premiered, I told Kim this, in person. I was like, dude, when I heard about AEW, it was just a godsend. It was like, thank all the gods that this is actually real. A real promotion who has TV on a real like cable slot and is serious about a long-term like, company of they plan on going for years. I'm sure. Like they're not. It's not one of those companies where like you hope they make it to next year. They have a contract for like 3-5 years, to be on TV, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So that to me is like the biggest breath of fresh air. And honestly, before AEW, the only wrestling I was watching consistently was New Japan, and I was like pretty much phasing my way out as well. But for me personally, AEW is the beacon of like, this is the wrestling I'm going to be watching for, the next 5 to 10 years for sure. That's the way I feel. But that doesn't mean I don't want like anything bad. WWE, wherever WWE goes, that's where the industry goes because they're so gigantic. So, the more the merrier for me.
For me, it's getting people jobs. A lot of wrestlers are going to get work now because there's multiple promotions, and we haven't even touched on Impact Wrestling, which say their women's division rivals WWE's women's division top to bottom because there's so many good women's wrestlers on that roster. So there are options for talent to go. And if talent's getting signed, then I'm happy as a clam. In terms of viewing prowess, Wednesday nights is the place to be. And if there's a pay-per-view or a network special, since I have the network, if it's one of the big four, Mania, SummerSlam, Rumble, and Survivor Series, and sometimes Money in the Bank as a fifth, I'll watch those. Other than that, I'm not tuning in to watch a 3-hour pay-per-view. Thankfully, now WWE has changed it to about maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes for their pay-per-views because COVID and short attention spans. But the same old, Chris, like we start the show, same old rest, hold, work a body part, commercial break, rest, hold, okay, TV matches where it's heavily edited, scripted. There's no real action. It's just to move the story along for the pay-per-view. Wherein, and I hate to say this because I'm not an AEW guy yet, it's run by wrestlers. They're starting to understand. Okay, their business acumen may not be the best in terms of running a promotion, but what goes on between the ropes in ring, I will give AEW all the credit in the world. They got to fix their women's division problem. Forget this charging $50 for a women's fan club. Y'all got to fix y'all women's wrestling. That's the main issue why I don't watch. Because if your main champion just squashes somebody, even though Heather Monroe's good in the indies, no one's heard of her. Nobody's given two licks about her, and yet she gets to wrestle the champ. And there's so many other women's wrestlers out there for AEW to choose from. No, until y'all fix that, I'm not gonna watch.
There you go. Like, and that was the lowest. The lowest part of my AEW watching experience has been the women. I didn't see the women's match this week, and Chaba was even asking it like that. We didn't get to her question, but why is it that way in the AEW? I don't know.
I'll make it 30 seconds or less. It's that way because they don't have a lot of made-for-TV women's wrestlers on the roster. Didn't have the luxury of going to a developmental brand. They were signed straight from the indies, and they weren't ready for television. So that is why the Joshi wrestlers were brought in. We can't fly them in now because COVID.
So hopefully it's a temporary issue.
That's essentially what it is. I just think they were just not prepared to have a full women's division. And one of the, like, I think in fact, I would say, I think it's safe to say 3 of the main women that they brought that were not Joshi, like the Japanese female wrestlers. I think 3 of the main women that they banked on was Awesome Kong, who is a tried and true awesome, wrestler, no pun intended, and Britt Baker and Statlander, and all 3 of them are out of commission till further notice. And I think that kind of that, along with not being able to bring in the women and or the women from Japan, I just think they just were not prepared. Even in the beginning, their women's division was always like clearly the weakest link. And then with COVID, and then people not being cleared to wrestle, like injured or whatever, I just think they're kind of like in a desolate place. They don't have any well to go to, so to speak. So they're just kind of like scraping whatever they have. And yeah, it's hopefully when as time goes on, they come out with a plan and get some of these more green, what you would call green, female wrestlers, give them some more time. And when you never know, I know Penelope Ford has gotten better in the ring as she's been able to wrestle. So I think they have some people. Hopefully, in the future they'll be able to kind of bolster that division a little bit more. But for now, clearly that's their weakest point.
Hmm.
At what point did I cut out, Kim, to answer your question?
No, you answered it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I get it.
Yeah.
Because I basically said C team and then I cut out, so I didn't know.
No, I got it. Thank you. Thank
Cool.
you for explaining.
Of course.
So we will have Nerd Side of the Ring again. I'll clip the show and put it on YouTube like always. But we'll do this again next Thursday at 1 p.m. Everybody still good with that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And then we'll have Wrestling Wednesday again this Wednesday at Free Play Richardson, where we're forced to watch NXT, right? Sports Ball. This is when Sports Ball pushes AEW away, correct?
Yes. For
Sports
next
ball,
week,
okay.
we're forced to watch NXT. Yes.
All right,
Forced.
but like NXT is like, well, what I'm saying is we can't jump back and forth like we did
Yeah, I know.
yesterday.
It's just it's a force is like putting a gun to your head, like watch this.
Well, we don't have the whoa, that was a weird commercial break and then flip it over. But I am looking forward to giving NXT like more of a legitimate shot. So the next couple of weeks, it's just them on Wrestling Wednesday. We'll continue to have our shenanigans. I should go over the champions. We have a bunch of number one contenders since our Intercontinental Super Turbo champion Mike B couldn't be bothered to show up, and also our he was also the Third Strike champion. So he wasn't there. And then Lauren wasn't there. That was our women's champion and our Pac-Man Battle Royale champion. So we have number one contenders. We have Tommy Wheeler is our IC number one contender. Petty James is our new ST World champion. Alex the Machine's our number one contender. Surprise, surprise for Third Strike. We had to make it difficult for him, so we made it a handicap match. It was the logo and myself versus Alex the Machine. And he's so good, he beat us both with double perfects. So good luck, Beltran, next week. Ms. Mejia had a really good match with Shannon on Super Turbo for the women's number one contender, and one Damian G. He's looking to take that Pac-Man Battle
number one
Royale
contender.
title. Yeah. So we'll have plenty of shenanigans and promos next Wednesday, starting 7 p.m. I'll be there earlier at Free Play Richardson. So join us for that Wrestling Wednesday, and join us for Nerds Out of the Ring. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, dudes. Check the messenger for something cool that I found.